Welcome to Run Disney Part 2. Okay.
Well, that's what happens when you let rank amateurs do the bump for the show.
John, I have some words to say.
I'm sure you do. We're already starting now. Welcome to episode 41 of the Universe of Magic podcast. My name is John, and I've already aggravated my co-host, but here is the lovely Alyssa.
We needed to take 3. Take 2. I needed one
we
more.
We can do another intro and just, whatever. It is what it is. We'll do it live. Anyway, we're joined, as always, with Alyssa and our good friend Jeff.
Hey, everybody.
And we are joined by one of the most decorated agents ever because she runs like a champ, Kristen Smith. So we are going to talk Run Disney. This is part 2. And I'll just do some rank adjustments there. So we're going to talk Run Disney because, again, what was it, last weekend or the weekend before? They had their massive event, the Food and Wine. It was just packed. But as always, because I always forget to plug our lovely agency, we are powered by the lovely people at Moments of Magic Travel. So for your free, no obligation quote, go to momentsofmagictravel.com. And of course, if you are new to our podcast, be sure to like and subscribe on all platforms, audio, video, you name it, we are there. Getting all the plugs out of the way. Yes, down there. It's not going to work right. Anyway. We botched the intro. Great. We mildly botched it. Man, we're a
little rusty. It's been a few weeks.
No, we are rusty. This is like our first show in like 3 weeks. But anyway, let's have at it. Disney, real quickly, dropped, I think, a pretty big promo for the beginning of the year. So we'll just play and dine. I failed to pull up the Parks blog because I'm a bad host, but if you guys can go into the intros or go into the details a little bit, if you have it.
Oh, you totally sprung that on. Sorry. Okay.
Yes, sorry. Hold on.
So,
I can edit that out.
Here, I got this. Yeah. Families with at least 4 nights package, hotel tickets, and dining plan, their kids will be half off, which can be gigantic savings. So, I mean, what a 4-day ticket nowadays is like $300 to $400. So cut that in half. And then the dining plan can be, depending on what type you get, that can be $75 to $100 a day. Cut that in half. So it's a massive amount of savings.
So again, momentsmagictravel.com for all your booking planning. We do it, everything needs. But anyway, let's talk Run Disney, because you guys had quite the event a week or so ago. So where do we even begin, Alyssa? I'll let you lead since this is I cannot wait to talk about some of the pictures we have.
I have some stories. Yeah. So Kristen and I were just back in Florida again a couple of weeks ago. We just saw each other at the beginning of October, and then we saw each other again beginning of November. So for the annual Wine and Dine weekend, which their theming this year was a little different. It was like a play on dining, right? So we had the 5K was Alice in Wonderland theme, which again, like the eat me, drink me kind of, and the tea party idea. Kristen, what did we have for the 10K?
It was Be Our Guest. It was highlighting Lumiere and Cogsworth, kind of the sidekicks, but it was kind of like feasting, was kind of the idea. It was, here's our feast, be our guest to the feast. So
love that.
And then the half was, this is the one that got me a little bit. The half was Encanto. So I think they're going for like the family, it takes me back to the movie where they all sit down together and eat, dinner and whatnot, in the casita. And then of course the challenge, I think the challenge just, they had to do it at some point was Figment.
Yeah.
So
which is the only really like link because he's
yes,
in a way the mascot like of
yes,
Epcot
of
Food and
Epcot, yeah.
Wine. Like yeah,
Mhm.
so that was. I
Yeah.
mean, they knew what crowd they were catering to. I feel like so.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, I think that one sold out the fastest because everybody's
Mhm.
been waiting for something Figment oriented. He's becoming a staple now. Like you said, he's kind of the mascot of Epcot. So I think we're going to start seeing him a lot more incorporated to festivals, especially Wine and Dine, from here on out. So
Yeah. So there were those 3 races. Then you could do the challenge, which was the 10K and half, which
yep,
you did. You did everything, right,
I did
Kristen?
everything. Yes.
Yeah. Bless you. So I did.
Makes
I
me
did the
cramp up
5.
just thinking about it.
Yeah, I've done a challenge before, but that was years ago. I did the 5K and 10K, which I know that I had talked way back when about possibly doing the half. And then I roped my husband into doing the 10K with me. I knew he wouldn't do a half. And so, but it ended up working out because the 10K was Beauty and the Beast themed, which is like my favorite all-time movie. So, and truly my training did not go as planned. So it probably was exceptionally really good that I didn't do the half marathon. But man, I have the bug again, y'all. I'm gonna probably end up doing the half marathon next year because I got that itch. So I know John and Jeff, you guys haven't done Run Disney yet, but once you do one,
0.0.
Yes.
Okay, but
yeah,
I'm gonna have stories to tell you of why you can do any of these races. So yeah, we'll go into that. So but yeah, I know this is part 2, so we're not necessarily going to go into all the details of Run Disney itself, but I think we were going to kind of highlight Wine and Dine weekend. What this weekend was like, our experiences, talk about some different things that we hadn't talked about in the last episode. And then John and Jeff, again, you guys being more the novices, like you guys feel free to pick our brains because even though I've done several Run Disney races in the past, this was my first one since the marathon of 2020. And so things have changed post-COVID. And so I feel like I learned so much this past race weekend just to kind of help guide other people a little bit better that I wouldn't have known had I not experienced it myself. So,
Changed in a good way, bad way? Or
depends on the way you look at it.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're definitely. I have run since 2020. I did last year, and there were even changes from last year. So they're constantly trying to improve the whole experience for everybody. There's a lot of discussion going on about, and I think it's later on we can talk about it, but how they set up the corrals this year was a little bit different, and there's a lot of discussion about that.
How about we jump into that?
Okay, let's go. Let's get right into that.
So you got to first explain to us novices, what is a corral? Is that basically a group of people at a certain time?
Yes.
Correct. So for like the 5, there's more corrals depending on the race and the race weekend. So like when I did Princess, I think it went through A through N. But I think like this one we had A through E was the last one possible. So they break everybody. You get assigned a letter on the bib. I don't have my bib with me, but you get assigned a letter on it to say which corral you start in. And so typically A is the fastest runners, then B is a little bit behind them, then C, then D, then E would be like the slower runners, hypothetically speaking. So you can submit a proof of time to get in a higher corral, but then it's honestly kind of a crapshoot. So I know for a fact Kristen is faster than me, but I was in corral C and Kristen was in corral D. So I think it's because I put whatever my estimated time was, and then they just took that and stuck me in a corral that they thought was good. So
I've had that. I mean, I had that same experience. Like there was one year when I did Dopey, I wanted to try and get up a corral just to have a buffer. And I put a time in that was outside the block of recommended, and it actually paid off because they did bump me up a corral. from where I thought I was going to be. But yeah, I didn't put a time in this time, and I was like, as long as I'm not at the very end, that's all that matters. But
Mm-hmm.
with that, since people aren't sure where they're going to end and how the course is going to go for them, you get a lot of people that get in their corrals really early. So they're at the front of the corral, which then gives them a buffer to the balloon ladies. So the biggest change with the corrals is they put, for the half, they put open times. So kind of what that means is normally as soon as they're open to everybody to get in. But the unfortunate people that were, I wouldn't say unfortunate, the people that got stuck in E-Corral, they couldn't get into their corral until 5 a.m., which was when A was starting, which means, they were asked to be there by 4, but then so they had to wait in the prep area for over an hour before they could even get into their corral and get a spot. And it was positioned way far from the stage, from all the pre-race activities. So there was a lot of just like what's going on with this confusion, their spacing. So that was, I think, a lot of the feedback. People were like, it was unsafe because all of a sudden all these people started to rush when they started moving. And I mean, E-Corral was probably the same size as, would you say, like C and D together? I mean, it was double the
It's
size of
always
a
the
regular
biggest.
corral.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the last corral is always the biggest. So
Yeah.
but yeah, and the thing that I like for perspective for you guys, all the other corrals open at 3:45. So
Yep, 3:45. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So everyone then had an hour and 15 minutes to kind of trickle in and go get their spots. And then the race starts and things are moving. And at 5 a.m., everybody was just rushing in. And I think their hope had been to space things out a little bit more, but it kind of backfired on Run Disney. And everyone just kind of stampeded and people got hurt and stuff. So I hope that they take that experience and not let that happen the next time, or have some more organization to it somehow.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it too was also the course, the way we started the course. The courses were a little bit different. I personally enjoyed all of them. I know some people are like, oh, I didn't like this part, I didn't like that part. For the half, we do get out on highway for quite a bit. I don't love that 6 miles is out on the back roads and you're out of the park. But the 5K, like Jen and I both said, we're like, we don't feel like we just ran 3 miles. It could have been because we stopped at every country and took a picture. But the course was interactive. It was fun. You didn't feel like you were out there running. The 10K, I don't know what you thought about it, Alyssa. I thought it was pretty good. For the most part, there are a few spots that it got tight, but that's general course.
That's typical.
That's typical. And, with the popularity, like I was thinking in some of my races, I was like, oh, 6-7 years ago, we didn't have this many people even running the race. So we didn't have a constant stream of people. Well, now it's so popular that there's always a constant stream of people in those tight spots, but they are working with what they've got. So I thought the courses were really good this year. But I do think that for the half, that was part of the problem too, is how they started us. They couldn't line us up differently. And that's what caused a lot of the bottleneck at the front when they're moving. So
I also think, I don't know if you experienced this, Kristen. So I was in the very last corral for the 5K and then C for the 10K. And the 5K felt like they break up the corrals. When they say corral A, it doesn't mean at 5 a.m. all of corral A is going at the same time. They then break corral A into like, I don't know,
3 or
5
4,
to 10 different like sections of people who go at a time, and that felt like those sections were incredibly small. And so because we were in the last corral, I fully expected it to be in the 5K, the smallest race of all of them, to be on the course within maybe 30-45 minutes tops, and it was about an hour and 10 minutes before we started. So it was after 6 a.m. before we crossed the start line.
Which is totally different from my experience when I was in the last corral with my mom in 2020. I think we were across at like 40 or 45 minutes.
And that's what I expected.
There was a good like 20-25 more minute lag this year. And I don't think it's the number of people. I just think it's how slow they pushed us out onto the course. I also do think another switch that they made actually really close to race weekend was they moved the athletes with disabilities. And that was a topic of conversation. I'm sure that we'll see adjusted, I hope in the future. They used to be up, I think, right after A corral. This year, this race, they put them back in all of the corrals. So that was a concern more or less for their safety. People were concerned their safety because they do, need to get out and navigate the course and kind of get their bearings. And they didn't have that opportunity because they had all these people around them, from the start. So that is something I hope Disney kind of goes back and adjusts as well for fairness to them, because, we want them to have a good race too. We don't need them to, be panicking or be like, I can't, with all the people around, those pushing wheelchairs, things like that. Like, I feel like they should have been up where they usually are.
Or been given a heads up when they signed up.
When they signed up. Yeah.
Like, you're right, it literally was within days of the race weekend. And I felt like Run Disney is something I love about the community, is that it is running opportunity for all, no matter your stamina, no matter your abilities. And so, I mean, there's people who are deaf and hard of hearing, who are blind, who have whatever mobility issues or cognitive issues, who can do these races. And so having that ability for them to, like you said, get their bearings was so positive, and I felt like inclusive. And in a way, they were being inclusive, but in the wrong way, like by making this change. So
yeah, for sure.
So that was disappointing, but yeah, hopefully they're taking, like you said, all this feedback, going with it. So, yeah.
How do you guys get to the race course in the morning? Do they have special buses that start early? I asked that because I got a few of my clients who are running, I think February or March, or there's a race coming up, and she's asked me or tasked me specifically of finding out if Art of Animation, is going to have a bus or not. And is it like they just look at how many people that have registered with the race are staying at a resort and send the appropriate buses? How does that work?
So I'm not sure, Alyssa, your experience on this. So I was at Grand Floridian, and one thing to know about Grand Floridian, if you're staying there, is it picks up at the Polynesian, at the Grand, and it goes to Shades of Green. So we have 3 places. And granted, it's never full. I always personally try to be on one of the first buses. In the past, I've been the first one. This year, I saw buses before the scheduled time, which I thought was great. But yeah, we stopped at each of those every single time. So I would say on the deluxe, maybe to be aware that it could stop at multiple places. I know Jen, she was at where she was at, but it was just their resort, and they had multiple lined up. So I do think they look at the numbers of where people are staying, because Disney has the capability to, double check that to see. Now let's see, what day was it? It was Expo Day. We actually didn't have a bus come for like 25 minutes past the open of Expo. So that first day, we had a lot of waiting that first day to get to the Expo, but for the races, it was perfectly fine. So they, got things kind of ironed out. It's not a company that Disney runs. It's, contracted out. So it's kind of, on them. I did hear some stories about the Dolphin and Swan having some issues I want to say, I don't know if it was the half day, but there was somebody had posted a picture. They'd been waiting for a bus for 45 minutes and probably had 200 runners waiting for buses. And they weren't sure if they were going to get there. So not
so
to scare
is it your recommendation that you should leave really early, like well before your corral?
Yes. They recommend you be there at 4 a.m.
At the latest,
At the latest. However, to navigate any late buses or wrong turns or lines like that, I always would say try and get on the first bus because you want to get out. I mean, it's better to wait at the corrals and at the pre-race spot because they've got characters, they've got bathrooms, they've got coffee trucks, food trucks, all of that. But you don't want to be late to the race because they will shut down the roads and you won't be able to get there. So
I have a lot of this sounds terrible because some of this our show today is starting with some of the negatives, and we're definitely going to the positives because it was 99% of this weekend was phenomenal and fantastic. But I intentionally always run Disney race weekends because I have had too many poor experiences with the buses because, like Kristen said, they're contracted. They are not Disney bus drivers, and they don't always know where they're going. If you are at a resort like Caribbean Beach, Coronado Springs, Port Orleans, Riverside that has several bus stops, you are not at the first one. You're gonna watch bus after bus after bus pass you, and you're gonna be waiting 45 minutes or so for a bus to stop at you. So pro tip: if you are staying at one of those bigger resorts, you find out where that first bus stop is, and you just walk there. And get on that first bus. or stay at a resort, even like Pop Century, that has one bus stop. So makes it so much easier. I did not know that, Kristen, about the deluxe resort. So that is a helpful tip. So,
and I would have guessed that Wilderness Lodge and Contemporary probably partner up,
maybe
as well.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure, but
yeah. So I always drive myself. Then I have the flexibility of not having to wait for the bus after the race. Then I just go to my car and leave. And like you said, sometimes then the roads close. And then if you're on the bus, like you're just kind of SOL at that point. Like you don't really have a choice.
So talk to me, Alyssa, about that renting a car, because you just said earlier that the roads close. So how do you balance that, having your own vehicle and getting where you need to be if the roads are closed, or is there alternate routes? I mean, how does that work?
Well, I leave my hotel by 3 a.m. So I still get there early. And then I maximize the use of like the race time. So not only like the race itself, but the post party time too. So, I mean, there are a bunch of my friends and a lot of people got beers after the race. We're hanging out, going to get character photos and stuff. And so by that time, the race is officially done and all the roads are open again. So they have essentially, like, at least from typically when the races start at Epcot, one lane that will be open for people to still drop people off and stuff. So like the race itself goes through, most of the races go through the Epcot like ticket parking payment area, but then that very last row they'll have open for still people to like get through. So if you're like you get there at like 5, like when A starts, I mean, you could technically go through, park really fast, run up and get an E, but that's just too stressful. So
yeah, because I've been on property when races have ended in the morning, and trying to move around is pretty damn chaotic. Like you have to go really weird ways to get anywhere because roads are closed. So I was just curious with renting a car how that worked, if it was advantageous. But you just saying you just go early and then you go with the flow at the end of the day, whatever it is, it is.
Yeah, I think if you're not doing a race, you prioritize like where the race is not going. So like for like Wine and Dine, none of the races go to Magic Kingdom or Animal Kingdom. So like you could hit up those parks. You can find routes over there, no problem. So, or I would then prioritize Hollywood Studios or Epcot, like only if I was staying at an Epcot resort, like Beach Club, Yacht Club, like something like that.
Now, do they not go to Animal and Magic because they're not full marathons utilizing the whole park?
It depends on the course map every year. So I know the Wine and Dine in previous years has gone to Animal Kingdom.
Yes. Yeah, we did run Animal Kingdom a couple times. I'm kind of sad it hasn't come back because that was kind of, minus the behind the scenes animal smells. It was a fun park to run through. Now Hollywood Studios, I think, has a bigger pull with Star Wars. That's why they've switched and gone that way. I think it's also a lot easier for them to contain it because we go between Epcot and Hollywood Studios in the back a lot easier. So, but I remember at one point in the half we were running and there was a lane of cars like right next to us. And I was just like, oh, yep, they're going. I'm not even sure where they were going. But that is something as runners though too, we are aware of, is that there are going to be portions that at a certain point in the morning, we will have traffic, running next to us potentially, especially too, when you get to the marathon, they have to open it up. So that is something, we are aware of too, that, we might run into traffic. But if you've got clients that are not running races, just so they're aware, that traffic might take a little bit longer to plan ahead if they are driving or on the buses. You know, just the heads up is nice so that like, oh, we're not, or, you know, they don't freak out about missing a reservation or something, that they plan ahead as well.
So I have my last negative thing, I promise, about this weekend, and then I'm going to go into all the positives about it, because again, it was so great. Was and Kristen, you can tell me if this had been a change already from 2020, because I don't recall this previously, was that we had to walk from the parking lot or the bus stop all the way down to Epcot to the security, and then all the way back, and it literally added over a mile of walking from like to go through security before you even got to the pre-race party. So
yeah, where they put the pre-race stuff, definitely we don't, I mean, we've had to walk before, don't get me wrong. I'm pretty sure I did almost 2 miles of walking before the marathon last time.
But that was from like even pre-race to the corrals was like a
Yes.
super long walk before. But this
Yes.
was before you even got to the pre-race party. You had to go all the way down through security, all the way back around. And that I do not remember. I remember just crossing the street and going through and it just being there.
Yeah, they moved security in. Yes, it used to be where we could just cross over. So it's wherever they switched us drop off wise, you know, it did cause us to have to walk more, but I appreciated not having to walk so far to the corrals. Like, but
True.
I think it's a toss up, because we would have walked to the corrals that distance or from
True.
you know, security. So I think it's just because they wanted to utilize the new security systems where, you know, before they were going to have to check they used to have to check everybody's gear check bag, that your if you had a fanny or anything or a flip belt or something that you're carrying, they would have to check that. So it actually slowed down security. Whereas this year, going through the regular security checkpoints like we do for the parks, they didn't have to stop anybody. I mean, I didn't see anybody get stopped. I'm sure they did a few people.
I saw a couple, but like, nothing crazy.
But it was
So I got a weird question.
Going through security.
So John and I are on the side watching, you know, at Epcot, everybody running through the parks, and we want to see the same people that we're with maybe run through the next park. So we quick leave and go over to the next park. And every time we do that, we got to go through security. You guys running, a weird question. Do you guys have to go through some type of security when you go in the parks all the time?
As long as when you have a bib, that's considered your pass almost.
Yeah.
So they check you. They do check through different security checkpoints to make sure that like you're not allowed to take like a backpack on the course or anything like that. So you already go through security once. Once you have a bib, that's considered your pass onto the course, and you're not checked again.
Yeah.
All right.
And then I was gonna say then they know you've gone through security. Yeah.
That makes sense. I guess I was getting at. I didn't know if because I've seen other races in other cities, people have little backpacks on or stuff like that. You know, I assume you guys were allowed to do that at Disney, and if you are, that's kind of a security risk. You're bringing something in every park all the time. But if you guys aren't allowed, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know?
Like you can have like a little, like most people have a little fanny pack or something like that. But again, it's already been checked. So, and I don't really know too many people who leave the course, go somewhere else.
Not even someone leaving the course, it's somebody handing them while they're running by, you know? I mean, it's just,
I don't see that really on this one for most. I mean, unless it's a 5K, but even still, I don't feel like there's certain spots that they won't let spectators. So I feel like that also helps control that potential of grabbing something.
So is it safe to say, Kristen, the majority of the people you see cheering on are in the parks?
Depends on the race,
well,
I would say. Yeah. So like the 5K, the park is not open yet. So the only spectators are at the start line and finish line. And they have also all gone through security.
You got to wait till you get to the 10K before you start to be in the parks.
And even then it depends on the time the park opens and the time the 10K ends. Like, so the one exception would be the half marathon, the marathons that go through Magic Kingdom. They do open Magic Kingdom up before the official park opens to allow spectators to come in and cheer along Main Street. So that would be the one exception. But the other three, I don't know of any other races where they've opened the other three parks early for spectators to go cheer.
No, and the only time I've ever had people in the parks was marathon, when it was after park opened. Which was always fun because, you know, they're holding people back and then like, okay, hurry. And these people are like, what do I do? And it's just like, no, just cross the thing. You got to break in the runners. I think that's the only race I've ever because like, yeah, in the 5K and 10K, we have cast members. That's one thing I do love about running through Epcot is they get cast members from the different countries out there, usually about 2 or 3 if they can. And I think that's great because we don't that early. Everybody else that's cheering us on is all sleeping. So it's nice that they come out. But yeah, I would say the half marathon, the biggest place for spectators is the boardwalk.
I was just about to say, yep.
Yeah. And that's actually my favorite spot. It's usually where like the charities will set up and they'll have like 10 or 15 people with their signs. You'll get a lot of families. Like if I would tell my family to like cheer if they're not going to be at the end, I'd say go to the boardwalk. Like if we're staying there, get to the boardwalk. It's got a lot of space, you know, and they can put quite a few people on the side cheering you on. So otherwise, yeah, kind of the front or the finish and the start.
And people will intentionally book a water view room at the boardwalk to be able to cheer from their balconies too.
Yeah.
There you go.
Really cool.
Speaking of booking, you could like book a vacation with Moments of Magic Travel. Don't you love that transition? Right
That was
there.
good.
Yes.
Good.
Anyway, get your free no obligation quote because we are powered by Moments of Magic Travel. Again, get the arrows right there. You go. momentsofmagictravel.com for your free no obligation quote. Yeah, I figured we were halfway through and like, oh, we might as well get another plug in. So boom. So
go ahead, John.
Go ahead. Well, I was just gonna say, like, I've never done like if I do anything, I'm gonna do probably the 5K because it's not really like pressure oriented where you don't have to worry about the balloon ladies. Because like my worry is I do something like the 10K and I'd have the bubble ladies like or balloon ladies behind me like you're coming to get you, you know, like. So talk about that, like. Because that would scare me because you pay a lot of money for this, you know, so like what would you like, how do you avoid that? Like, because they say you're supposed to run a 16-mile pace,
16-minute mile. That's for 16-minute mile from the time the balloon ladies cross the start line. Yeah. So if you cross the start line with the balloon ladies, you must maintain at least a 16-minute pace. And they are to a T the 16-minute pace. Like they train to go that pace the whole time. So if you fall behind them, you're definitely behind the requirement. So, but like you said, the 5K does not require it. It's the only race each weekend that you don't have to maintain any pace. Really, you just have to keep going. And then, but yeah, the only time I've encountered the balloon ladies was for the full marathon. And I will say that they were super encouraging. It's not really the balloon ladies you have to worry about. It's the medics behind them. So if you can't keep up with them, it's not the balloon ladies that take you off the course because they're going to tell you, keep it up, keep going. It's the medics that say, you've ran a great race, but we got to take you off. So
now what happens if they pick you up? Like, do you still like get to walk across the line and be like, you made it? Not really, but you made it.
You don't get to walk across the finish line. You are taken on a bus that says parade bus or parade route because you were a parade. And they take you to the finish line and you still get your medal. You still get your snack box, all those good things. But yeah, you don't officially finish, which stinks.
You got to do a walk of shame, John.
Oh no.
Which
I've had enough walks of shame.
There are thousands of people each race who do get taken off. Like that is a reality. Yeah. So and again, I came close marathon weekend, but they didn't pass me until mile 26, and I was like, okay, I'm 0.2 away. They're not going to take me off here. Although I've heard that since 2020, they're getting more strict on it, so they will take you off at mile 25 out of 26. They'll take you off at mile 5.5 out of 6.2. Like that they're doing it. So because I think that people were abusing that a little bit, where they're like, oh, I'm safe if I get into this part, but you're really not till you cross the line.
They honestly could pull you at Epcot in the last mile. Like
they could.
Behind the scenes, there's a place they could pull a bus up. So you are not safe until you cross that finish line. I will say for the first time, I did see the sweepers. I didn't see the balloon ladies. I saw the sweepers behind them. We were coming, they're on an overpass and we were coming under on the half. And I actually took a picture because I was like, this is what people fear. And I was like, we're like 3.5 miles ahead of them. I mean, we had plenty of time. So I wasn't worried, but I was like, here's the buses come, here's the guys on the bike. And I was like, oh, that's what they actually stopped. because I think they were trying to let, you know, the group keep going. Like they obviously don't want to be on their tail,
Right.
but they have to be to maintain, you know, the time. But yeah, I was like, oh, that's what it looks like to see the end of the race. And then I looked back and I was like, how far have we run since then? Like we did a huge loop because we were out by Blizzard Beach. And yeah, so I was like, then you're in your head, you're like, wow, that's a lot, you know, seeing it on a race course versus actually running it, the distance is completely different. You know, sometimes you're like, wait, okay. But yeah, it didn't scare me, but I was like, it was kind of fun to see them, you know, to actually get an idea of what it looks like at the end. So, and you know, people get swept for multiple reasons. You know, maybe injury, they've been sick, their training just didn't go well.
The heat is too bad. Like they can't handle it. Yeah. Now I will say this past wine and dine weekend was absolutely perfect race weekend weather.
It was.
It was what, low 60s, upper
60s,
60s even. It was cold when you weren't moving, but when you were moving, it was amazing. So even though I trained very terribly for that 10K, I could have ran the whole thing because the weather was so good. So
yes. Well, and I train in inside most of the time, just because I train super early in the morning, and my workout room apparently gets really hot when I'm running, and so I was ready for, you know, 70s. So when it was like upper 50s and 60s, I was like, I did not bring warm enough clothes. So I don't know about you, Alyssa. I
was freezing.
So, yeah. 5K freezing the entire time. And then, of course, warmed up as we got going. That afternoon, I did a quick Walmart delivery order. I ordered like $7 men's shirts that I'm like, if I throw them away, I throw them away. And I ended up wearing, let's see, for the 10K, wearing it through to like mile 2. And then I just like tied it on my waist and ran the rest of the way. For the half, I even broke out hand warmers and my Mylar. I had it all. I had long sleeves, my hand warmers, and my Mylar. And that actually was the best combination for me. I kept my long sleeve on until about mile 1 and then just tied it on. But even after the races, like, because you're sweaty and it's cold, like people were like freezing cold after the race, but then for the half, temperature up and perfect. So I can't complain. We didn't have any rain. I mean, I don't think any runner out there would have complained about the cold, to be honest.
No, we just dealt with it because we knew it would be so good once we got moving.
Yeah.
So, if it's okay, so talking about the 5K, John, I'm going to give you a lot of hope because I want to talk about that experience with my dad.
Yeah.